Before diving into this fourth part of my SuperGodzilla12 inquiry, it is essential to understand that this series is a multi-part archival investigation. These videos are not meant to be consumed in isolation. They are linked by a specific methodology of evidence, vulnerability, and case study analysis. To fully grasp the scope of what is being documented here, I strongly recommend viewing the previous three parts in order, as mapped in the description below. Part 1, RodberryFan Serious Questions for SuperGodzilla12, establishes the foundational record of the conflict and the allegations at hand. Part 2, Beyond the Critique, How Vulnerability Shapes Our Worldview, a reflection on SG12, explores the role of human vulnerability and how the subject's own defensiveness drives his actions. Part 3, The Pathologization of Taste, Why Correcting Dislikes Creates Resentment, a case study, analyzes my own history of internalizing punitive shaming and explains why correcting others' dislikes serves as a catalyst for resentment, including online. Hi, SuperGodzilla12. It's me, the Orion Broadcast, formerly known as RodberryFan, and in this installment, I'm moving beyond the abstract to document the tangible long-term impact your actions have had on my life. It's not enough to speak merely to my lived experience. I'm committed to providing forensic receipts to substantiate it. This video is structured as a formal, multi-chapter investigation. We'll begin by peeling back the layers of the system you built through two evidentiary commentary chapters. Commentary number 1, The Mandate of Respect, Deconstructing the Manipulation. I will address Monster Drink Fan 605, formerly known as Love My Twinkie 246810, directly, dissecting his October 20th, 2013 commentary to hold him accountable for his role in the fall 2013 dogpile and his participation in the broader campaign against me. Commentary number 2, The Cycle of Denial, analyzing the 2022 rebuttal. I will address the Ephrommentator, aka Ephrom Josine, directly refuting his December 31st, 2022 one-shot commentary in which he chose to cherry-pick my receipts, and questioning his alleged history of involvement with your 2012 fandom. These segments are part commentary, part formal inquiry. Only after establishing this documentary foundation will I return to focus on you for the final segments of this record, the human cost, and my concluding verdict. By grounding this narrative in these specific time-stamped exhibits, I'm transitioning from personal testimony to a comprehensive, verifiable record of events. This is the aftermath of the system you built. Monster Drink Fan 605. In your October 20th, 2013 video about me titled Twinkie Lover, OSC, He Sure Is the Orion King, that you first posted when you were known as Love My Twinkie 246810, you were doing far more than simply disagreeing with my defense of the Lion King. You attempted to manufacture a social mandate. The assertion that true respect for differing opinions somehow requires one to quietly tolerate and validate mean-spirited behavior. To enforce this, you weaponized my own handle, the Orion Broadcast, turning my identity into the punchline of your video for the so-called crime of refusing to validate punitive bullying. Crucially, the evidence of orchestration is documented by you yourself, Monster Drink Fan 605, both in the video's description and the opening on-screen text. You explicitly admitted that this content was requested by Some Call Me Duckman, aka Darkmaster Rises. This confession exposes a calculated chain of command. Darkmaster Rises was not merely an observer, he was actively directing others to target and harass me for the specific purpose of punishing my refusal to respect a mean-spirited view on the Lion King.
Hello guys, this is Geek Boy. Very recently, two users by the name of Evil Brosby and Dark Matter Rises both uploaded parody videos of the Orion broadcast, a user that you might know very well from his videos or from Pounder Sparkle's commentaries she did on 2 of his videos. However, the Orion broadcast got very mad at this whole situation and made several videos, a commentary, no, 2 commentaries on both parodies, and a warning to some calling the Duckman, or Darkman Horizon, I'm sorry. Both of which saying that they had no right to upload a parody because they were attacking the messenger and not the message of, the fact that Confused Matthew was no longer a relevant topic in the year 2013.
I got mad at the whole situation for, Evil Broseph. He didn't discuss the message and where he tried to post I'm the most Mr. Boring person ever on my reading commentary on Michael Wong's Philosophy of Star Trek video, and to discuss the message that that essay against Star Trek was pure horseshit, and he tried to order me to respect right-wing religion and call me a dogmatic atheist without discussing the reasons why I don't respect it. And with some call me the Duckman, now known as Dark Master Rises, he was trying to force me to agree with Confused Matthew's Lion King review when I never will, and I've put that behind me.
I have to say this, but the reason why he is telling you to agree with his opinion is because he only wants you to respect it. So maybe Dark Master Rises was just doing that to troll you is because you didn't accept Confused Matthew's opinion on the Lion King.
You willfully ignored a fundamental principle. Respect is not an automatic right. It is earned. While I value the expression of diverse viewpoints, I refuse to extend respect to rhetoric that is inherently mean-spirited and punitive. To illustrate the absurdity of yours and Dark Master Rise's demands, I harbor my own intense, visceral hostility towards the Star Wars prequel planet of Naboo, a grudge driven by Naboo culture's speciesist persecution of the Colo Clawfish as a perceived scourge. Yet I don't demand that others validate my outrage just because it's my opinion. If I don't require others to celebrate my own vitriol, then you and Dark Master Rises had no moral standing to mandate that I respect Confused Matthew's then malicious hate campaign against the Lion King. By forcing that mandate, you weren't defending an opinion, you were enforcing a standard of compliance that required me to abandon my own moral conscience.
So if you think that the Lion King is okay, that is fine. But you don't have to go apeshit about Confused Matthew's opinion on the Lion King. To be honest, I like the Lion King, but I don't go apeshit about other people's opinions on it.
You stated that you liked the Lion King but chose not to go apeshit over others' opinions, attempting to frame my dissent as an overreaction. Let me be clear. My issue was never with Confused Matthew disliking or critiquing the film. My issue was with the punitive, mean-spirited bile he directed towards Simba and the audience at the time, a pattern of behavior he maintained long after his arguments were proven factually incorrect. At the time you first posted this video, Confused Matthew had demonstrated no such distinction. He continued to treat fans of the film with smug dismissal. It was not until 11 months and 1 week later, on September 27, 2014, with his Lion King re-review on the now-defunct Blip TV, that he finally demonstrated the reform necessary to move beyond that behavior. By demanding that I respect his content in 2013, you weren't asking for intellectual openness, you were demanding that I normalize abuse.
And by the way, the reason why that guy was calling you a hypocrite is because he is saying that you were yelling at someone for doing the exactly same thing you were doing. So I don't think yelling at someone for calling you a hypocrite isn't going to bring you up that mountain as far as it can go. I think maybe you're just exactly the same as a baby that can only walk on 2 small feet, but won't walk faster.
You claim that my response to harassment was no different from the behavior of my abusers, labeling my reactions as hypocritical and infantilizing my distress by comparing my tone to that of a child. This was a classic exercise in tone policing. You prioritized the manner of my defense over the morality of the abuse I was enduring. It's a profound irony to be called a hypocrite for yelling when the very architects of this harassment, like SuperGodzilla12 and Dark Master Rises, were systematically flooding my space with hostility, constantly weaponizing their own platforms to shout down any dissent. My angry reaction was not the catalyst for this conflict. It was the inevitable result of my boundaries being repeatedly obliterated. I had attempted to walk away from the SuperGodzilla12 drama entirely in 2013, but instead of being allowed to leave, I was subjected to a coordinated punishment campaign. Videos like yours were created specifically to penalize me for refusing to validate a mean-spirited opinion. To suggest that my reaction to being trapped was equivalent to the systematic abuse used to keep me trapped is not an observation of hypocrisy. It's a calculated attempt to shift the burden of guilt from the aggressors onto the target. My dissent was never the problem. The problem was, and remains, a community that chose to normalize abuse rather than to permit me the simple dignity of walking away.
And also another thing that I have to say is that just learn how to accept opinions. That's what some call me Duckman, aka Dark Master Rises, was trying to tell you. He wasn't forcing you to agree with his opinion. He is forcing you to accept his opinion on the Lion King.
You argued that I needed to learn to respect opinions, asserting that while I didn't have to agree with Confused Matthew's mean-spirited hatred of the Lion King, I was obliged to validate it. That was never a request for discourse, it was a demand for my silence. You need to understand the difference between healthy disagreement and the culture of hostility that you and Dark Master Rises enforced. Disrespect is a natural outcome when someone chooses to express their dislike through vitriol and ridicule. I have learned to accept that reality. I don't demand respect if a Star Wars prequel fan refuses to respect my personal dislike for the Sando Aqua Monster. I simply move on. By demanding that I respect mean-spirited behavior, you and Dark Master Rises weren't promoting open-mindedness. You were manufacturing a hostile environment for dissenters. You weren't teaching me to be a better critic. You were trying to force me to abandon my own standards for the sake of your comfort. If you had recognized that your behavior was creating a toxic atmosphere, you might have understood why I was so profoundly hurt and angry.
And anyways, guys, I got some good news. One of my strikes have expired on this account. It must be that strike about Mr. Kylo2 blocked me that was removed for bullying back in April. So if I get a account strike again on this account by the Orion broadcast, I can just appeal the strike without deleting it, then the whole house will be back to normal way it was.
It's a significant failing of the platform that you were permitted to continue this behavior in clear defiance of YouTube's terms of service. In fact, you were shielded from the consequences you earned. At the very time your previous bullying strike expired, you were actively engaged in a coordinated harassment campaign. Yet you were emboldened enough to threaten an appeal had you faced the consequences of your actions. Had the moderation team performed their due diligence, this video and the broader network of content produced against me in the fall of 2013 dogpile would have been removed. You and many of your associates deserved the strikes that should have followed my flags. Instead, that lack of enforcement allowed this cycle of abuse to persist. Monster Drink Fan 605. Look at the opening of your November 18, 2013 parody of me. In these seconds, you weren't just making a video. You were documenting your own commitment to harassment, using your platform to mock my refusal to submit to your petulant demands for unearned respect towards a mean-spirited agenda.
Hello, this is the Orion broadcast here, and I'm gonna be doing a rant against Love My Twinkie 246810. Well, 10, whatever you call it. I just want to let you know that he made a one-shot on me that told me that I should respect Confused Matthew's opinion on the Lion King, which I will never will. He's like a clone to Dark Master Rises, aka some call me the Duckman.
One lasting consequence of your actions and those of your associates that you didn't escape is my permanent condemnation of that mean-spirited scorn for the Lion King that people like SuperGodzilla12 harbor. The trauma resulting from that environment has only solidified my commitment to documenting this history. Speaking of that history, you've been directly accused by other observers, as documented in my June 10, 2026 investigation titled RodberryFan Serious Questions for SuperGodzilla12. You were accused by Nebjon of being a participant in alleged Skype communications with SG12 dated July 20th, 2020. These allegations involve discussions concerning illegal actions, specifically threats to have me swatted and arrested. Because my role here is to establish a verifiable record, I'm providing you with the opportunity to address these allegations on the public record. Question A, Monster Drink Fan 605. Were you a participant in any Skype calls with SuperGodzilla12 on or around July 20th, 2020, during which plans to swat and falsely report me to law enforcement were discussed? Yes or no? Question B, if your answer to the previous question is yes, what was the nature of your participation, and what was your justification for remaining involved in a call where such criminal actions were being plotted? My investigation into your history reveals a consistent pattern. You acted as a self-appointed enforcer of a blind respect for toxic discourse. You adopted a holier-than-thou posture, dismissing me for refusing to validate mean-spirited critiques simply because I rejected a punitive culture you championed. When you combine this established history of ideological policing with the serious allegations of coordination in 2020, the record paints a clear picture of your role in the system, Monster Drink Fan 605. I'm concluding this chapter of inquiry here. I have no further questions for you, Monster Drink Fan 605. I will now shift my focus to the Ephrommentator. Ephrom Josine, the Ephrommentator. On December 31st, 2022, you posted a 43-second one-shot commentary disingenuously titled "The Image Understander Has Logged On." In this brief segment, you engaged in a calculated act of cherry-picking. You presented two videos from Archival2160, now Artemi Musha, a participant in the fall 2013 dogpile, to undermine my evidence. I would have let go of the whole Confused Matthew thing had Dark Master Rises behaved himself instead of telling Evil Broseph and the commentary committee to harass and dogpile me with his pissy demands to respect Confused Matthew's opinion on the Lion King like he did, and I would have been in a university by now instead of a college dropout.
All I'm going to say is, I find it funny that your list of videos harassing you includes a video where Artemi Musha says he's not going to cover you, and another video by Artemi involving a situation that you were only tangentially related to, and which involved him giving what was at the time an unpopular opinion on the situation, by the way.
You chose to cherry-pick Archival2160's claim that he wouldn't commentate on me, while conveniently downplaying the fact that just 22 days later, he completely contradicted that stance by interjecting into the discourse to defend Beastly Evie, now Quillpen Monster. You dismissed this as a tangential mention, yet you failed to disclose that Beastly Evie was a key participant in the very same bandwagon that SuperGodzilla12 investigated in the spring of 2011 to silence me. Furthermore, you stripped away the essential context of that defensive maneuver. Beastly Evie was finally experiencing the same targeted harassment I endured for years, specifically the fallout from her own then homophobic stance against gay marriage. You omitted the fact that Eli Riffs happened to subject her to the very same emotional trauma she was complicit in inflicting upon me in the name of the SuperGodzilla12 agenda. By isolating those screenshots, you weren't engaging in commentary, you were performing an act of historical revisionism. You actively distorted the record to sanitize a toxic system, choosing to prioritize the comfort of the aggressors over the reality of the timeline. To address your decision to endorse the following 3 comments, we must dismantle the bad faith framing that has sustained this misinformation for so many years. First, consider the assertion by Sean S. regarding my obsession. Quote, it's ironic that Orion calls Confused Matthew Obsessed Matthew when Confused Matthew hasn't talked about the Lion King since 2008. And yet, to this day, Orion is still going on and on about Confused Matthew's video on the Lion King, meaning that he's more obsessed than he's claiming that Confused Matthew is, unquote. For starters, Confused Matthew obsessively singled out the Lion King in his unrelated reviews between 2008 and 2014, with others like Strong Rex complaining about, so don't you dare tell me that Confused Matthew stopped talking about the Lion King in 2008. This argument relies on a convenient erasure of context. My references to Confused Matthew were never an isolated fixation. They were a reactive protest against a community hell-bent on platforming SG12's mean-spirited misinformation. My original critique plans were intended to be a singular commentary assessment. It was transformed into a multi-year point of contention only because SuperGodzilla12 and his network weaponized my dissent to drive punitive shaming. Had the drama concluded on November 2nd, 2013, the day that Ariloff2160 claimed he wouldn't commentate on me and Mr. Sir Raven claimed that there was nothing more to say about me, I would have moved on. They didn't want me to stop talking about Confused Matthew. They wanted to force me into silence regarding their own platforming of mean-spirited rhetoric. To label my resistance as obsession is to ignore the reality of the harassment campaign that necessitated it. Second, look at the comment by DJ Souls. That's sad. This guy blames his failure on someone else despite that person wanting nothing to do with him, unquote. This is a textbook example of gaslighting, a tactical misdirection designed to rebrand legitimate grievances as an inability to take personal responsibility. By dismissing my documentation of organized harassment as blaming others for failure, they attempt to erase the reality that my experience was not a personal shortcoming, but an externally imposed consequence of a coordinated campaign. My detractors, including you, Ephrom Josine, have consistently utilized this framing to bypass accountability. They argue that my defensive reactions to abuse are the cause of the drama, intentionally ignoring that the harassment was a series of choices made entirely by them. When I attempted to disengage, I was met with further retribution. They did not want me to move on, they wanted me to submit. Finally, Rex Helmroom stated, quote, "Oof, imagine dropping out over YouTube drama," unquote. This comment is a profound distortion of the historical record, and your endorsement of it reflects a willful ignorance of the evidence. Characterizing this as mere YouTube drama deliberately obscures the reality of a years-long campaign. The record documents 36 of the over 50 videos produced against me within a single 3-month span. This was not a disagreement. It was an organized effort to strong-arm me into validating punitive cruelty. To dismiss this as dropping out over drama is to lie about the nature of the abuse I endured. This was not a voluntary exit. This was a forced withdrawal resulting from a systematic attempt to socially ostracize and emotionally crush a dissenter. Ephrom, I must address the record regarding your associations and your methodology. I've reviewed documentation, including allegations from DeviantArt user Nebjon, suggesting a history of fandom regarding SuperGodzilla12 dating back to 2012, alongside claims that you have a disdain for the Lion King, mirroring the specific mean-spirited rhetoric championed by SG12. Well, I have noted your 2016 subscription to Confused Matthew on your Ephrom Josine channel, and your subsequent decision to leverage my 2009-era grievance against me during our 2016 interaction. I'm seeking a definitive record. I cannot verify the full extent of your history with the SG12 network, so I'm putting these questions directly to you for the record. Question A. Ephrom, were you a fan of SuperGodzilla12 in or around 2012? Yes or no? Question B. Do you harbor a hatred for the Lion King substantively identical to the specific grievances expressed by SuperGodzilla12? Yes or no? Question C. If you answered yes to the previous questions, do you harbor or endorse punitive, mean-spirited narratives regarding the characters of Simba, Timon, or Pumbaa? Yes or no? Question D. Did you target me in both 2016 and 2022 to enforce SuperGodzilla12's anti-Lion King agenda in particular? Yes or no? By cherry-picking content from Arialoff2160 and endorsing 3 comments of associated harassment, you're not engaging in an objective critique. You're acting as a secondary filter for the revisionist history that SG12 and his enablers have propagated for so long. You have chosen to operate within that system, and this record now reflects that. I have no further questions for you, Ephrom. My attention now returns to SuperGodzilla12 to document the human cost and the final verdict of the agenda you helped facilitate. SuperGodzilla12. Now that we have concluded the forensic audit of your system and interrogated the methods of your proxies, I'm moving beyond the evidence to the reality of the impact. I'm here to detail the tangible, devastating toll your combative actions have taken on my life. I want to start with a principle that is essential to any discussion of accountability. As Louis C.K. once observed, when a person tells you that you hurt them, you don't get to decide that you didn't. You and your enablers in the commentary community have lost the right to deny the harm you've caused. You do not get to dictate the validity of my experience, especially now that I have laid the record bare. My testimony in this chapter is not an abstract complaint. It is the human consequence of the system you built. I have grounded this account in the forensic record. All relevant documentation is linked in the description below. The repercussions of your 2011 drama bandwagon did not dissipate when you stepped away. They fundamentally altered my trajectory. Before I challenged you, there was no collective animosity towards me in the commentary community. In early 2011, members of the commentary community, including those actively roasting Confused Matthew's Lion King review, were initially supportive of my own commentary plans. Savage Broadcast, for instance, offered me guidance. This proves that the community's eventual hostility was not born from a disagreement over film criticism. It was a response to my refusal to capitulate to you. The community was obsessively weaponized against me the moment I called out your manipulation and your orchestration of attacks to defend your scorn for the Lion King. This is the legacy you left, a system of social conditioning that relies on the permanent ostracization of those who dare to document your conduct. The environment you cultivated fundamentally altered my life's path. From the spring of 2011 through the fall of 2013, the relentless harassment forced me to scale back my education, causing me to skip semesters entirely. The fall 2013 dogpile, a campaign you orchestrated even in your self-imposed absence, was the breaking point that forced my withdrawal from college. While I attempted to resume my studies in spring 2020, the foundation had been eroded. Had the community not shielded you or had the harassment ceased by early November 2013, as even your own peers Arialoff2160 and Mr. Suraven recognized that there was nothing new to bring to the table, I would have continued college from 2014 onwards and graduated to a university by now. You did not just participate in drama, you actively disrupted my ability to secure my own future. The toll extends far beyond my external career. Your actions forced me into a state of terminally online hypervigilance, a constant exhausting state of looking over my shoulder to see when you and or your enablers would mobilize to punish me for possessing a moral conscience you clearly despise. This environment significantly hindered my creative output. My work on my interstellar spacecraft design concept, namely my Orion 2 concept, was stifled by this atmosphere, resulting in chronic procrastination, a direct result of years spent defending myself against the mean-spirited narratives rammed down my throat. My exhaustion was not an accident. It was an inevitable byproduct of a decade spent in survival mode. Most devastatingly, you left me vulnerable to my own volatile impulses. Take my self-polarizing hatred for the Sando Aqua Monster and my 2026 Dredge Endgame fantasy, a destructive narrative I got in response to your systemic invalidation of my concerns. In 2011, I was actually critical of Titan E, the very film that now anchors this reactive fantasy. My shift from a critic of that film to one who weaponizes its antagonists against Star Wars is clear evidence of how your refusal to accept accountability eroded my ability to contain my own worst impulses. There is a bitter irony in the time I lost. Since 2010, I have cultivated an avant-garde fashion choice, the untied soft silk bow tie, rooted in anti-war movements since the 1960s. I could have advanced my community service, including my ritualized removal of cigarette butts, and deepened my scientific research throughout the 2010s. Instead, your drama traumatized me into an unofficial decade-long hiatus from that very attire that represents advocacy for peace. That period was stolen by the shadow of your drama and exacerbated by the malicious, unprovoked interference of AW115, now Fusion Dash, in December 2015. However, there is recovery. I'm reclaiming my passions you drained. I've regained the motivation for my Orion 2 concept and more, and I'm currently deep in the development of a transformative xenofiction trilogy featuring my own non-binary trans-feminine Colo Clawfish character, slated to go up on Archive of Our Own. My ongoing recovery is precisely why I have implemented a strict, zero-tolerance, three-strikes policy regarding you and your enablers. I maintain an active protocol of archiving every relevant comment and downloading every offending video. This is not a choice made out of malice. It is a deterrent policy. Its sole purpose is to ensure that you and your enablers can never rob me of my motivation or erode the sovereignty I've worked so hard to reclaim. That's all I have to say regarding the toll you have taken on me, SuperGodzilla12. We have reached the end of my personal account. Before I deliver my final assessment, I want to acknowledge a significant point of growth within this history. I'm genuinely pleased that Quillpen Monster, formerly Beastly Eevee, has renounced her previous homophobic stance on gay marriage by March 2019. This is a matter of public record, visible in a comment on Eli Riff's November 25th, 2013 video regarding the Beastly Eevee incident. I offer my forgiveness to her because she serves as a tangible example that discriminatory views, such as opposing fundamental rights, are choices that one can and should choose to abandon. Now for my verdict on you, SuperGodzilla12. You and your enablers have gaslighted me to the hilt, manufacturing endless excuses that justify persistent harassment long after you ran out of arguments. Your inner circle engaged in profound hypocrisy. They accused me of being a dead horse regarding Confused Matthew simply because his Lion King review was already thoroughly debunked by others. Yet you and your goons continued to badger me with the same worn-out excuses. You had nothing new to offer, save for a refusal to admit what was already evident, that my initial assessment was correct. Detractors such as MacBoy Redux and Blaze the Movie Fan utilized the dead horse narrative not as a point of logic, but as a tactical smokescreen to silence my resistance against your punitive anti-Lion King orthodoxy. Their hypocrisy only served to fuel my resolve. For a clear example of the toxicity you champion, consider this comment by Tristan Petty on a video critical of Confused Matthew. It perfectly captured the standard of scorn that you also chose to harbor. Speaking of confused Matthew, he eventually abandoned his mean-spirited superiority complex, one where he threatened to beat up Simba and treated skeptics as idiots, in favor of a more mature, if he's wrong, it's his loss perspective. This evolution brings me to my new non-negotiable boundary for you, SuperGodzilla12. I'm ceasing to pathologize your mere strong and faulty dislike for the Lion King itself. However, do not mistake this for total absolution. I will not tolerate, nor will I grant you license for, your punitive, mean-spirited antagonism towards the film and those who defend it. I do not defend my own worst impulses, such as my aforementioned Dredge endgame against Naboo, and I expect the same standard of self-accountability from you, SG-12. This is not necessarily a final word on SuperGodzilla12. I remain open to new, relevant information should it emerge in the future. But for now, the record stands. SG-12, you built a system of resentment, and I have successfully documented its structure, its mechanisms, and its human cost.